Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Kindly introduce yourself in 30 seconds.
My name is Titi Ojo, and I'm a distinguished Toastmaster. I'm the MDC of A+ Trainers Limited. Went to capacity building of small and medium enterprises, went to research, we help organizations grow, become more productive. I also wear caps, several caps as well. I'm also the lead consultant at AgriChains Consult Services Limited, for your information.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay, Ma, we're going to be talking about the different roles we have in Toastmasters meeting, starting from the Toastmaster of the day. The question is, why do we have those roles? And how can we effectively play them?
Right.
So that's the first question. So we're starting from the Toastmaster of the day down to all the other roles. General Evaluator, R counter, timer, Evaluators, speakers, and all of that. So let's start from the top.
Let's scratch my nose first.
Yeah, you can.
It's doing me. Sorry, I'm trying to edit this. As you're aware, Toastmasters, we learn by doing. We learn through practice. And that's why, every meeting we play roles. And of course, we take our meeting arenas or meeting areas as a laboratory where we can practice, we can test, and then we can get feedback on how well we're doing. So the essence of roles really is to get people practicing certain things. Of course, we give the roles names, and those roles typify what every communicator or every leader should have. So for example, we have the Toastmaster of the day. As a good communicator, you're expected to be able to coordinate events. Most of us would find ourselves playing the role of moderator, facilitating round tables, even conversations we have at dinner. Really, we need to have a hold of activities and be able to plan and implement and drive conversations with other people. So this, I think, is why we have the Toastmaster of the day. Like we talk about it when we introduce that role. We say, I'm like the MC of the event. I'm like the compare. I'm the one that ensures that this meeting goes as planned. I take care of the proceedings. I make sure everything flows without any trouble whatsoever. And you notice that that's really what the Toastmaster does. That's really key because in real life, we get to do this more often than not, really. Many of us in our offices, we have been called upon to do this same thing that we do in Toastmasters. And it just becomes a walkover for us. Because we do Toastmasters, we play the role of Toastmaster of the day a lot of the times in our meetings. So if your boss says, we have a meeting tomorrow, can you chair that meeting? You are kind of playing the role of the Toastmaster of the day. And you notice that Toastmasters play that role very, very easily. And then your boss starts wondering, have you chaired a meeting before? Oh yes, I chair it every Sunday. My club meeting. I chair it every month. So it just prepares us for the real world. And that's what the Toastmaster of the day helps us to do. And of course, a Toastmaster of the day also requires that you plan. You want to know what's the theme of the meeting. You want to know who's playing which of the roles, who's speaking today, where are their profiles before I start. So it teaches you planning. And as a leader, because the Toastmaster slogan is where leaders are made, the leader should be a very organized person. It's just important as a leader to be organized. So those roles help you to be organized because there's an expectation of every role that you play. And if you plan towards playing those roles, then you're better organized even in the real world. So I've just talked about the Toastmaster of today, like the MC, like the coordinator, like the compare, the facilitator, the moderator of a meeting or of an event. And that's what the real world asks from us, demands from us. So that helps the Toastmaster. The other role is the General Evaluator. Now it's important that we evaluate the meeting and how well everything went, all the proceedings of the meeting. In my real world, I organize events, and after my events, I usually do the after action review. The after action review helps me to know what works well, what worked well during that event, what could have been improved, and what we should look at improving upon actually in the next meeting. For example, what should be included to make it a more exciting event or a more exciting meeting. So the General Evaluator has that role to play. Generally evaluates the different aspects of that meeting. And the different aspects of that meeting includes timekeeping, includes the use of the word of the day, the use of grammar, includes, what's that third one? Even the use of pause fillers. And that's why when the general evaluator is called upon, he always introduces his team. We call them the tag team most of the time. That's the timer, the accountant, and the grammarian. And then, of course, the general evaluator also has that role of generally evaluating the room itself, the ambience. How has the sergeant at arms been able to, create a good environment for us to have our meeting today? Was the environment conducive for learning today? Was the door open when we came in? Did the people have to stand outside? Were the programs, were they made readily available? Of course, I've attended meetings where it's the last minute we realized that the hall was not available and we're running helter-skelter. And that's really the work of the sergeant at arms. So if you look at it critically, the general evaluator should have worked ahead of time, if you ask me, getting to understand the situation before he actually arrives at the meeting. So I keep saying that all these roles require planning. It's not when you just jump into the meeting, you start playing your role. The planning of that role starts even before the meeting. The moment you'll be notified, you'll be playing that role that day. So that's the work of the general evaluator, generally just evaluating every aspect of the meeting and getting the feedback that is required to know what has worked well, how well the people have used maybe the props if possible and use the word of the day, how they've done well with grammar, how their speeches. And there's one role that the GE plays, that's the general evaluator, that sometimes we miss out. The general evaluator evaluates other evaluators. That's the role of the general evaluator to do that. Now look at it this way, we evaluate every speaker. And speakers may be speaking for the first time. Also role players may be doing it for the first time. So it's important that the general evaluator evaluates the role players too. And in that evaluation, he's pointing out to them what they've also done well, just like we do the CRC. He comments them and recommends areas of improvement when next they're playing that role. And that's very critical, that the general evaluator takes note of that particular role. Because I see that sometimes we do not take it too much. We kind of just leave it out, but it shouldn't be. Evaluators also need to be evaluated. Evaluators need to be voted for. It's part of the Toastmasters program. That's why if you look at that evaluation sheet, there's also the ones for the for the evaluators. Even the general evaluator needs to be evaluated. Like I said, every Toastmasters meeting we learn by doing. So everyone that plays a role during that meeting actually needs to be evaluated because that's the only way they can grow. It's through feedback that we grow in Toastmasters. What other roles? I probably have brooded over them a bit, but I'll just bring them out in real terms. So we have the timer. The role of the timer is to keep, is the timekeeping for that meeting. So first of all, the person that will play the role of a timer shouldn't come late for the meeting. that's where it starts from. As a timer, you should also time yourself. You put your alarm clock for 3:30 if your meeting is at 4 and you leave 15 minutes away. That means you must start driving out 30 minutes so that you're there by 1:45, whatever time that is. And you already set up your timer so that when the meeting starts 4 on the dot, you're already ready, you're prepared. You have all the things you need to play your role that day. And this also, it's for every role player. I've been saying it over and over again. I'm saying this because it's for emphasis. I see role players also rushing into the meeting 10 minutes, 15 minutes after, and it takes time to even settle down. And really, it doesn't add to the quality of our meetings, if you ask me. So the timer does that. And the timer also should get the brief early. Of course, we have a standard timing, but there are days that our time, some speeches are given that way out of the regular 2 to 3 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. The timer needs to have a good idea of what kind of speeches are we giving today. Are they special speeches? Some speeches are 10 to 12 minutes, depending on the kind of project you're working on. You have that right in mind, and so you prepare for that. And of course, we have timing devices. We have our lights, the amber, the red, and the green. Of course, all our role players should be briefed properly and let them even practice using the timing devices if possible. Then we have the ad counter. The ad counter is the one that checks for pause fillers. If you read this material from Toastmasters, the Toastmaster wears many hats. It's a great resource, and I think every Toastmaster should find that. You can even go online. The Toastmaster wears many hats. You see the free download there. We need to sit down at that and read that document. It really helps to put our roles in perspective. Now, one of the areas that the ad counter should be looking at, yes, first is that pause fillers, the use of pause fillers. Pause fillers might be words or crutch words, we call them in some other cases. We're looking at words that we use too often. We repeat it unnecessarily in our speeches. Now, let me just also clarify here that there are certain words that are easy to use as crutch words, and that's why we find words like so. Somebody had come to visit me in my office on a certain day, and I can count how many so's this person used. I was dizzy from the so's that the person said. So I was like, my God, who speaks like this? So was the beginning and the end of every sentence. Like every transition, so was there. I was like, who speaks like this? His was an extreme one. Extreme. I had to lecture before I left my office. I didn't even care. It was the first time I come to visit. I couldn't bear it. I had to like, sir, please. And you know, there's another one too that used you know was everywhere. I was like, God. In fact, that was so bad. That one was even the worst I've seen ever in my lifetime. For that one, I really dedicated time and told him to join Toastmasters. It was so bad. I couldn't even imagine that he would be invited to a lecture one day and he will have this many you-knows. Like, yeah, people would have tuned up before he even finishes. So I had to, and I said, you know what, please, I invite you to my Toastmasters meeting because through practice, I believe it will get rid of some of the you-knows. If you had 1,000 in 2 minutes, perhaps by the time he's leaving Toastmasters meeting the first time, you'll be conscious to reduce it by half. So we have crutch words, yes, that people use very often, and we know them. Even but can become a crutch word, and can become a crutch word. It's just really about how we use it, how unnecessarily we just splash them everywhere in our speeches. And that's what I think the ad counter should look out for. Not the use of it in just use and you write it down as a crutch word, but if this person had used it so unnecessarily, there's an overuse of the word in places where it shouldn't have been putting here and there, then yes, you begin to count that against that person because it's important that they know that they're doing that. In fact, many people speak, we're so used to speaking a certain way that we're so blind, we have our own blind spots. This man that was saying, you know, all over the place, probably didn't even know he was overdoing it until somebody had to tell him about it. So the essence of the account really is to get these people conscious that they overuse these words and they use it unnecessarily, they splat it everywhere, where it's not even necessary in their speech. And their speech could be finer, can be more professional if they can reduce the use of it. You know, we're looking at building professional speakers ultimately in Toastmasters International, and this will not add value to that speech. I told you the you-knows got me dizzy, so it got me distracted. At the end of the day, I was not even listening to what he was saying. I was just counting the you-knows. I focused more on his you-knows than his message. So obviously, people that use crutch words anyhow like that, you get people distracted because it just keeps repeating and it's ringing in our heads, and before you know it, all we're listening to are your crutch words rather than your message. We really want to be fine speakers. That's what Toastmasters is all about. So the use of pause fillers is critical, and that's what the ad counter is there for. And of course, the ad counter may also pick even phrases that are overused as well. It's really about the overuse of these things. It's not just at the instance at which it's used, but the overuse of it is what we expect the ad counter to record. And I would also advise our counters to give an example of how the person had used it so that they can really learn through that. For example, if the ad counter says, Titi Ojo, you used 4 hours, 3 homes. Okay, so I can't even remember when I even mentioned the how many homes you're talking to me about. Do you understand? So it adds more value if I can cite an example of how you used it and wasn't necessary. So we say I used 3 buts. I'm wondering, in a 3-minute speech, but is something I cannot avoid, and is a word I cannot avoid. If so, they come up in every statement because some of them are used as conjunctions, some are used as prepositions. So they are like the glue that glue sentences and all that together. So we don't expect that people will not use it. No. So when I use it inappropriately, you might want to point out to me how I used it. That way I've learned from that. If you just tell me I used 3 so's, okay. Next week I'm back with my so because I don't know how I've used it wrongly. So it's important to cite an example. If you can't cite all the examples of all the so's he used, just cite one really cool one that you know it wasn't meant to be put in there. And you probably might even make a suggestion to say, rather than so, there you probably don't even need to say so. You didn't have to use so, and it would have still been a complete statement. Or you could have said it in another way. That's great. I remember, where was that? There was one of our divisional conferences in Lagos. And I think I was one calling, there's the parade, yeah, and I was calling different clubs in. I kept on repeating a particular word, a particular phrase. And when I was done, there's this Dr. Johnson that called me and said, "Oh, Titi, I noticed that you're repeating this phrase each time you're calling, and the next person and the next person. I was repeating it too many times." He said, "So I could just make a variety out of that. So when I say so for this first person, the next person, I'll just twist it a bit so that it's not the same thing I'm repeating." And for me, I took that very, very, very nicely, and it has stuck to me. This particular statement was given in perhaps 2013. So for me, even referring to it now is because it's a very senior Toastmaster and also given me a way around how I can use that better next time. So I'm not repeating the same phrase at the beginning of every call. I appreciate that. I appreciated that a lot. And the last role is the grammarian. Of course, great speakers have a beautiful use of grammar. Tell me, anyone in this world, if somebody speaks very well, you will be endeared to that person. There's something about speaking very well. When I hear someone professionally delivering a speech with kind of English language, I'm talking about the kind of language that you're like, wow, this person is sound. That's important. We also want to build Toastmasters that deliver speeches with beautiful use of grammar. Some of us are used to certain words because we grew up learning, we are just used to certain words, and we don't go out of our comfort zone to learn new words that can replace some of those words too. The more we grow, we are becoming more professional at what we do. We are becoming more, expert. We become experts as we move on in our business, in our field, and there's some words that are expected of us to use in terms. There are occasions where we want to speak to a particular audience. You don't want to be too simple. You don't want to be too simple. And there's some audiences that can use something more simple to address these ones. So it's just important that we build our grammar back. Yes, that's what I call it. It's important. I think for Toastmasters, we have to make conscious efforts to learn a new word every day if possible. Like my husband, I told my son every day he must learn 3 new words. So now he's taking it very seriously. And he told me about 3 words yesterday. So that he can build his own vocabulary as well. And as Toastmasters, we are not limited to speak in our country. There are days you'll be in the US and you're called upon because you're a Toastmaster. Somebody calls upon you, so you're a Toastmaster, okay, we're going to the radio station together, oh my God. So every now and then, there's that call upon us to come and give a speech. How professional it sounds now depends on how you've been able to learn the use of language. And that's what the grammarian is caring about for that. Any meeting, that's what the grammarian should care about. So beyond using the word of the day, which is beautiful, a lot of the time I have learned new words from Toastmasters. And anytime I'm a grammarian, I like bringing new words as well. So many of us have grown through that particular activity. But beyond that, the grammarian should look at how well they have used the English language or the use of grammar. And for many of us, we studied English language in our schools anyway. So we also know the parts of speech, we know anecdotes, quotes, and all of that. Many of us never get to practice those things. And some may not practice till they die. But Toastmasters gives us the opportunity to practice everything that our teachers have taught us in English language. Let's bring it to the club. Let's bring it to our speeches. In fact, many of us don't even understand everything they've taught us in school. But when we start using the Toastmasters, we begin to remember, okay, this is what my teacher taught. This was simile, metaphor. Okay, I think this is the best time as a Toastmaster to bring all those things back to your speeches in Toastmasters International. I would advise that. So the grammarian has a lot of work to do. Sometimes you feel it's just use of word of the day. No. And let me tell you, you cannot give what you don't have. Never forget that. If you're the grammarian of a meeting, if your grammar level is not at that level where you can pick, you can pick good grammar, then your evaluation will be lame. You'll be poor. You'll be poor. So really, you can decide to say, for the next 1 year, I want to sit down and make sure in terms of grammar, I want to be at a particular level where if anybody comes in to play a role of grammarian, they will know that no, I'm well prepared for it. We need to also give ourselves those challenges. So in playing roles, let me summarize this part. It requires planning. You must plan for every role. Go back to the Toastmasters Wear Many Hats. Go back to some of our Toastmasters materials. What is my role for the meeting, for this next meeting? or is a grammarian, read it very well, prepare very well for it. It helps us to get very good evaluations, and that's what it is. And why we have to get good evaluations is because some people are attending your meeting for the first time. And they're not at your level at all. They're kind of probably higher than where you are. And when we give very lame feedback, they probably will not come back. Because the feeling is that they can never learn from this place. Since you are below them in everything you have done today, it's what it is. It is what it is. People crave to go to a place where they can be taken higher than where they are. Not where they'll be battling with the low level feedback they're receiving. So really, right now, my call to Toastmasters is that we should rise above the, I won't say it's mediocrity, I won't count it as mediocrity, it's just that we need more effort in making sure that each time we step out with our best foot. Always, always. Role players should be well prepared for their roles and be very sensitive as well. Role players should be given evaluations, they should be given feedback on their roles so that if they didn't get it too well on the first attempt, somebody has given them feedback on where to improve. And I also would advise that perhaps if it's biannually or every quarter, reminders, every Toastmaster in fact will play a role one day or the other. So it should be a general club-wide, division-wide, whatever wide you want to look at it. There needs to be reminders through training perhaps. It could be on the WhatsApp platform, it could be in the clubs, but that document that says a Toastmaster wears many hats. Where it's heading to is that every Toastmaster will play a role, any of those roles one day. So as you are, as I am, one day I'll be a Toastmaster of the meeting, another day I'll be the general evaluator. There will be a day, no matter what, I'll be an accountant. I'll play all those roles, and it's important that each time I step out to play those roles, I'm at my best. Absolutely necessary. There's one role that we try to introduce at a point, is not in the Toastmasters manual, and it's called the listening evaluator. Some clubs still play it. Some clubs, perhaps if there's time enough, they can just infuse that in. But that was a role that we felt was very useful, and we practiced it for a while. I think it's still useful till tomorrow because it helps us to test if the audience will actually listen. So you see, 4 speakers, after their speeches, listening evaluator steps out and then he just asks 3 or 4 questions and nobody in the room can answer it. What does that mean? None of us. We were hearing, but we're not listening. There's a difference between hearing and listening. And one of the hallmarks of a leader is listening skills. You must have listening skills. And that is why we sometimes just put in that listening evaluator into our meeting rooms, just to test the audience really, to be sure that we're actually listening and that we got the key points that the speakers had made that day. So I also advise once in a while, if you have time, you can actually add the listening evaluator to the agenda. Like I said if you have time. Because sometimes the listening evaluator just goes on their own tangents and the meeting just goes beyond the meeting.
True.
So please, that's a very great role. In its entirety, indirectly, we're learning planning, we're learning organization. By playing those roles, we're learning planning, we're getting planning skills through practice, we're getting listening skills through practice, we're gaining evaluation skills through practice, we're gaining feedback skills through practice, we are gaining time management skills through practice. There's just so much we have gained through practice, and we're gaining all of that for becoming the kind of leaders that we need to become. And that's what Toastmasters, that's why Toastmasters has put all those roles into every meeting. And the more you practice, the more you become. And that's why it has to be every meeting, wherever we gather, those roles must be present. Because the more we practice, the more we are better off, the more we become better people, better leaders, better communicators.
Thank you so much. I just want to bring out 2 roles that I didn't talk about much. One is the speech evaluator and the table topics master. Please just say something about that.
Beautiful. Okay. So, I knew you edit this one. Not forgetting that every meeting is about speech delivery. So definitely, we have prepared speeches, which is a section of the meeting. And we have table topics, which is about impromptu speaking, and then you can speak to a topic for 2 minutes. Now there are roles attached to that. We have evaluators for those roles. So we have speech evaluators and we have the table topics master. evaluate table topic section. Okay, so let me start with the speech evaluator. Now we use the CRC method of evaluation, which is commend, recommend, and commend again. Now, what should that focus on? You commend what this person has done well. Then if you feel you should have done a bit better in some areas, and when I'm talking about how it could have improved the speech, it could be perhaps maybe his logical flow, that could be it. It could be maybe his use of props. It could be maybe he could have infused something that made it more memorable in the minds of the hearers. It could even be his vocal variety, for all you know. It could be anything. But you're looking at recommending things I could have done better to make that speech either more memorable or to help him communicate that message clearly in such a way that there is no confusion. I hope you know that some people give speeches and we're a bit confused about what this person meant. So as a speech evaluator, you are looking at those things. And that is why you learn listening skills, really, because you must be listening for you to even be able to give feedback. Now, some of the observations I had seen, and I think I'd corrected once or twice, is when speech evaluators come forward and the evaluation is almost about repeating the speech that this person has given. No, that's not it. That's not your role. In a subtle way, we start from how the person started like this, you are repeating everything. No. Commend what the person has done well. That's where we're heading to, really. So there's a part of the speech you like. If it's introduction, you may cite something, yeah, that's fine. I love the way you started, your opening remark was really catchy. Like the proverb or maybe an anecdote, whatever the person started with, or a story. Just make reference to that. That was a very powerful way of starting a speech. And in giving memorable speeches, these are time-tested methods in the art of public speaking. Your opening is so important, your closing. And you're saying general things, general themes that everybody can relate to, really. Because you're saying, I love the way you started. I love that you told the story. You don't have to tell me the story I told. Because I've seen that happen. You told a story, you told us that one day you were born in Jamaica, then your mother named you. Excuse me, we have heard this thing now, just go to this evaluation. So if I want to say the use of stories has always been recommended as a starter. The use of rhetoric questions have always been recommended as a starter, and I see that you used that very well in this speech. You used some of these techniques. You might want to tell them, the way the flow, you built your flow very well, so that you took us from point A to point Z, and you held us bound till we got to the end. So we are looking at what the person has done very well. So commend, then recommend. If you feel that the person needs to improve in some areas, you might want to talk about even the use of story. I hope you know that some people also use stories and also relevant to their speech. So it could be a recommendation that I'd probably advise that you look for another kind of story, because in this case, I didn't even, when you gave the story didn't really corroborate the theme or the topic you're speaking to. I was even confused. Have you moved the topic to another thing, or am I? And really, that's where your listening skills come in, because you need to pick every aspect of that speech. And then, of course, the final commendation definitely is, thank you, you've done a great job, and I look forward to encourage them. I want them to come back another time based on the feedback. You're looking forward to having this person come forward again to give something even bigger and better than this. But the commendation and the recommendation is very important. Commending them for what they've done well, and recommend what could have improved that speech without having to repeat the entire story.
So, is it safe to say that we're supposed to evaluate them based on the project they're doing or based on their person?
So there's quite a number of things that goes into the speech. So the person is also involved. But of course, in Toastmasters, we're being evaluated based on a project topic. So usually you have a project that you're speaking to, and the project might be research your topic. Maybe that's your project. And the brief is right there. You can read it. This person is to present a well-researched topic on 1, 2, 3. So really, to the evaluator, that's where you should focus on. And this is also an advice to evaluators. Many evaluators don't take time to read the objective of the speech. Oh yes, many don't. So, in our case, if I'm told to evaluate, and I evaluated one particular Toastmaster, my God, the evaluation I eating very hard though. said, okay, send me your speech objectives, send me your evaluation sheet, just send me all I need. I read everything, I knew this was it. He came on and gave a speech that was not related at all to the objective. So when I was to evaluate, I told him, right there and then, I commend that you prepared for a speech. Yeah, great, you delivered a speech. But you know what? It's totally like in the opposite direction to the topic. Obviously, you did not prepare for the speech. That's what it means, really. Because if you worked in line with that objective, then this is not what you have presented. I know after the meeting, he came and made me say, truly, what I said was true. I said, you see, this just shows that you didn't plan for it. And it's not really nice if you're ready, you have enough time to read through your objectives. You should find a speech that fits. It's not rocket science, really. So for evaluators, now imagine if I had not taken up that, I didn't pick the brief of that, I didn't know what this whole objective was about. I would have just also come out and just commented based on what he spoke about, and I would have just said, what a great speech. But he did meet the objective, is the question. Now let me also tell you this. Now this is a project. Think about it as a real life project. You are building a structure. The instruction says use so number of bags of cement for the foundation. Use 1, 2, 3, 4 items in laying 1 or 2 things. You decide to do whatever you like. Will that building stand? No. So we're teaching ourselves discipline. When an objective is given to you, a project speech, project title, and even Toastmasters are taking the time to write out what they expect you to do. A disciplined Toastmaster will look at that particular thing, will read through and plan towards that. It is what it is. You can't decide to go off. It's not a table topic. In table topics, you can even decide to say, oh, sorry, unfortunately, I'm unable to speak to this, but I would like to talk about this other thing. Because you're speaking on your feet. But we call this part of our meeting because prepared speeches. They're prepared. So your level of preparation is what we are even evaluating. Do you understand? That's what it is. That is what it is. So I was in a meeting on Sunday and the lady talked about the leadership. There's something about leadership. Obviously, in our evaluation, I wrote that it was obvious that you prepared for the speech because I could see that you really prepared for it. We will see it. But as an evaluator, you need to understand what you're coming there to evaluate. First of all, so that you are clear. You are clear about it and you're looking out for those things that you should evaluate. Okay? So that's primary to any evaluator. First of all, to make sure that you understand what you're there to evaluate. Prepare well. Of course, I understand that also in meetings, we get there and the evaluator is missing. Please help us evaluate. Even in the few minutes you have, ask for the speech objective. Just read through. It's important. Because you'd have done a disservice to that person if you did not know about the speech objectives and you just evaluated based on your head knowledge. It's part of the quality. That is part of the quality of our meetings we have to get that right. For table topics, evaluation, because that's the time to set up people, set them up. We're not setting you up to fail. Just set you up to fail on your feet. And that's something that happens in the real world. It's not all the time you are ready for it, but there's something called mental flexibility. Being able to get keywords from even the topic you're giving and just hinge on one word, and before you know, you already have material. It's also something we need to train our members anyway. I've taken a workshop, a Toastmasters seminar on mental flexibility actually, and that has really been very helpful on how flexible you can be in your mind. What are the keywords? Somebody asks you a question and straight off, from just processing it for 1, 2, 3, 10 seconds, you know what to answer, you know how to respond to it. So that's very key. For table topics evaluators, we need to look at key things. First of all, the courage. Of course, the courage of the person to be able to even answer those questions. But one thing I think I need to correct, especially table topics masters, when you introduce the session is a 2-minute session. Most of the time, we don't even make it clear to the person you have called on. So many guests don't even understand how that works. We as Toastmasters may understand that it's 2 minutes, okay? When a guest comes up, we just give them the question. The guy just says a line or two and off he goes and sits down. He has not done justice to that topic. 2 minutes is what is given. So I will give an example of the last meeting I was jabbing excited actually. But the last meeting I attended, and the person was to talk about luck. So he just said a few words and he was going to sit down. I was not the table topics master, But I just quickly said, no, you have 2 minutes. I had to say it for words. You have 2 minutes. Guy said, oh, okay, I have 2 minutes. Then he continued. And I tell you, the thing that the other things he said made so much sense because now he knows that he had more time. Perhaps he was thinking, let me just quickly drop this and go and sit down. We need to make that clear. And I feel that when you also see maybe a first timer on table topics running away, no, don't let them run away. Keep them there. You can let the person, you still have 1 minute to go. Yeah. It's part of the training. They also come in here saying not to give 1 minute, not to give 30 seconds. I've seen an evaluation. If a table topic speaker spoke for 20 seconds, what kind of speech is that? Does it make sense to anybody? Let them, allow them. If they want to run, no, said no, still remain there. I'm sure you have other things to say about this topic. You have 2 minutes, you still have time. It helps them to now rethink, okay, I even have more things to say.
But how about the quality of the question? You hear some questions for table topics and you're wondering, how do you expect some exactly? How will this person speak on this topic for just 2 minutes?
That's a very interesting one. I've seen some topics too. I'm like, now wow. You see some topics where you just giggle when you're like, okay, thank God I'm not the one they call to talk to this thing. The thing is, topics need to be, number one, maybe realistic. I know Toastmasters were a bit, let me see, sometimes we don't want to go religion, politics. Yeah, so sometimes we try to stay clear of that. But we should also give topics that make people can easily find the words to say. Because at times, even the topic, you'll be wondering, what does this topic mean? I think there was one topic I've heard before. The person had to say, sorry, what do you mean by this topic? It was so ambiguous that it took us another 30 seconds to be breaking it down to the person else to talk about it. No, we're not there to, being a table topics master doesn't mean I have my chance to show that I can give them the big topics. No, that's not the idea. Your idea is to just get people to speak on their feet. Okay? So your topics should, number one, could be relevant topics, which is fine. It may even be an issue ongoing. It shouldn't be something we have to go to Mars to go and get the ideas from. You could pick a topic about what's even trending currently and let's see what this person thinks about it. It should be interesting. It should be interesting to the person. I think the interesting table topics, I've been in a session where the table topics are really interesting and I left that day really, really happy and fulfilled, and I was glad those conversations held that day. So as table topics masters, let's also be aware of that. It's not a time to punish people, because sometimes your table topics are punishments. And that's why the speakers cannot even speak more than 30 seconds. You can give topics that can allow the person to speak for even 2 minutes and they can feel their time very well. Think of it. When I have no words to say because the topic is just giving me a lot of headache, I want to just get off your stage. So let's be more creative. Let's be more innovative. Also, don't assume that everybody knows a particular subject matter sometimes. I've seen those that you give them a subject matter and they have no idea of what it is. So sometimes you can give me a sports topic. I will not be able to talk about it, I'm sorry. Ask me to talk about Ronaldo, I just know Ronaldo. It might even pass me and I'll say this person looks like Ronaldo. So you're telling me to talk about an issue trending in UEFA World Cup. I will never be able to speak to it because I have no idea. Even sometimes you bring up a political topic, not everybody is interested in politics. So you might generally look at issues around life itself that is general and people will be very glad to talk about and they can even share a story about it. Let's make our table topics more interesting. Let it not look as if we're using it to punish people. Or you're using that to test your power. Let's make it fun. Look for interesting topics. And let me just say this, perhaps in my closing on this. I feel that table topic session should be also, not because we want people to think on their feet, it should be a time of learning. So you might want to pick some topics that we will even go home and think about it too. And like, wow, truly. I love how this person spoke about it. I can give myself that table topics on my way home. Let it always be a time of learning for everybody. Let it not be a time of, okay, table topics time. Let's see the topics this one is for me. I look for table topics because I love to say exciting topics and how people respond to them. So let it be a learning session. Let it be fun. Let it be entertaining. It just makes table topics what it is. And sometimes just ensure that you help your whether the guest or whoever is going to speak to that topic, let them use their 2 minutes if they can. even if you can help them, and say, okay, can you also tell a story about this? You know, sometimes they feel they don't have anything to say. Right there and then, you can give a clue for them to make use of their 2 minutes, at least 1 minute. But when someone is running after 15 seconds, don't let them go. That is my own creed, and I don't let them go. Tell them to come back and tell them you can say more about this thing. We might need to do something also on mental flexibility as we move on anyway. Let's also teach people how they can quickly form ideas, sentences based on just a topic, and they'll be surprised that they can talk about that topic for the whole day. This thing they have spoken about in 20 minutes or 20 seconds can be a whole day's topic, and they will have content. So it's something we might want to consider as we move on anyway.
Thank you so much for your time today. I know personally I've learned a lot, and I believe those that will watch this as well will have a lot to learn. Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you.